I'm going to put a compilation together. There's going to be some pictures and maybe even a few videos at the end of this. Haven't done any videos in a while, but we didn't have great success at the beginning of the year with the field out here. We got the tarps up, put down some chicken litter, had a friend come and till everything for us, and tried planting some stuff, but by the time we got anything going, it was too late in the summer. It was in June already, and it was hot and dry. All the stuff we planted, nothing came up. So we did have all these okra that our friend gave us as transplants, and they were growing, but they weren't doing anything because the deer were eating them. Anytime they got any kind of fresh shoots on them, the deer ate them. So we had the field grow back over with grass and figured out, okay, well, if we can't get it all planted with stuff, we need to cover it again. So our friend came back out and tilled it back up for us, and we covered it back up. And then we just had the okra growing, and we did some transplants of sweet potatoes, and still the deer were eating everything. They love the sweet potatoes, they love the okra. And we decided, instead of planting seeds directly in the field, we would go ahead and get some starts growing in the house. And we did some beans, some different kinds of beans, and planted them, and the deer came and wiped most of that out. We do still have a few beans growing in amongst all of the melons we now have. These are green beans, some kind of bean. I think these are, I don't even know. Somewhere there's something that tells me what they are. So we had those beans growing, and the deer kind of decimated them. And about the same time, we rolled our tarp back and made another row and got all these different melons growing. We have Seminole pumpkin, and this is a Florida plant that we brought with us. We're not sure how it's going to do, or if it's even going to have enough time to get fully grown before the season ends. But there's a Seminole pumpkin down there, and there's a whole bunch of little ones all over the place, but I think this is the biggest Seminole pumpkin we have right now. That's about the size of a soccer ball, maybe. And then we also planted a couple different kinds of watermelons, and they're doing really good. There's a bunch of watermelon in there. You can't see them. They're covered up. They're protected by all their leaves. There's a few growing out in the aisles. The beans are growing up the stalks of the melons and the pumpkins. We've got a pretty good size watermelon over here. Two different kinds growing side by side. There's a big one. That's definitely the size of a basketball or larger. And then next to it is the other kind growing up in here. So a couple of giant ones right here. And I finally got out here and put up some fencing. We did took some of the plastic that we had down on the field and made strips so that we could basically keep the grass from growing in, and we would be able to mow around. And it's kind of hard to see, but it's just a 7-foot tall mesh deer fencing, but it's working. Now the okra are just going absolutely bonkers, and here it is already October, and the sweet potatoes are finally growing really good. And a couple of times I got out here before the melons and the squash and everything really took over. I came out and I weed-eated the paths to keep the grass from taking everything over again. And then you can see out here we've got all kinds of spaghetti squash growing, and these suckers are just huge. I have more melons in here. There's another big green melon down in there. And I'm having to be very careful where I put my feet. There's little melons out here that have grown into and over into the bean patch, but not a lot of beans are growing, just a few here and there. Survived the deer, Great Deer Massacre of Beans 2024. And we have little bitty melons, little bitty teeny tiny melon, and some bigger melons growing in with the squash. So we have all these giant spaghetti squash, and they are just all over the place. All kinds of different sizes hidden in here. Here's a really, really big one. Whole bunch of them up in here all over the place. They're just everywhere. And then we come down, a couple out there, another one over here hiding in the leaves. Two actually right there. Little ones here. Another bean making its home amongst them. And then we come down here and we have butternut, and they were the first ones to really go crazy when we planted everything. And there's just butternut all over the place over there. Up in here, I think we have a few that won't be too much longer till they start to get ready. They still have green stems, but they're starting to turn the tan color. And some of them are smaller and some of them are bigger. I mean, just monster. These are some of the first ones. These ones are getting closer to ready as well. And size comparison compared to that other one is a pretty big difference. We have 3 together there, a couple up under here, a whole bunch right here at the end. And these are some pretty good sized ones right here. But they definitely like, as we're getting into the fall here, they're doing excellent. Stuff just growing all over the place. We planted all of this. They were already starts that we, like I said, started the seeds inside. And we got them out in the field in July. This thing's a monster. Oh, can't even give a good size comparison. Difficult to get in there. But everything is just going absolutely bonkers now that we're getting into the cooler weather. Still don't have a good watering system figured out yet. We bring water out in some tubs in the bed of the trailer and just come out here with a watering can and water everything. But these guys have been doing really, really excellent. And I figure when we get to the end of the season, we'll just take this tarp and roll it back over for the winter and let everything give its nutrients back to the soil. Little bitty watermelons. We took one of each kind. They weren't ready yet. Of course, we Googled how to tell when they're ready after we picked them. So, look at this guy nestled in here on top of the rocks that are holding down the tarp. But we took a couple of the bigger ones. I think that's another Seminole pumpkin back in there. And even though they weren't ready yet, they were excellent. Just absolutely excellent. Very juicy, very delicious. They are just starting to get pink flesh. And I don't know if these Seminole pumpkin are going to have time to accomplish anything. But there's a whole bunch of them growing up in here. They're just all over the place. So, everything's doing really well. Loving this time of year and this weather. We'll see what we can get out of this before it gets too cold. But I think we're going to have a nice little decent amount of the squash and the melons. And definitely figured out that melons like this field. We sent off and had the soil tested, and it really didn't have a whole lot of nutrients, but every time we planted an individual start, we put some manure and compost and everything in the hole with it, and seems to have worked. Like I said, all these okra have just tripled in size. And we've got the sweet potatoes here that finally started doing something. So we'll see what ends up happening with them. I don't imagine we'll get anything too big, but we'll still have something. And here's our watering system. Just filling up these feed buckets and taking and watering a little bit at a time. We tried a 50-gallon barrel on a stand, but we got to get a different hookup for it because it just trickles out of the hose. That's why we have the hose out here. And it's a great idea, but it needs a larger valve to actually let the stuff flow through the hose. So that's a catch up on what's been going on in the garden all summer. And like I said, I'll throw some pictures up of us tilling it and tilling it again and covering it again, and finally got some stuff growing after the whole entire summer was almost over. But it's a learning experience. This is our first season, and I think it's going really, really good. Very excited. Got this fence up and kept the deer out, and things just went haywire after that. This is a 100 by 100 foot area that we have here, and once we get this figured out, we'll make it bigger. Have a blessed day. Shalom.